Welcome to another deep dive. Today,
Yep.
we're going to be tackling a theory that's really captured imaginations for decades, the Anunnaki, and their possible link to human origins. We've got some fascinating source material to explore, including excerpts from a video about Sumerian mythology, and of course Zecharia Sitchin's always controversial interpretations of those ancient texts. Now, I'm not saying we're about to rewrite history, but get ready for a wild ride as we sift through these ideas, uncover the most intriguing details, and see where this ancient astronaut theory takes us.
What I find so captivating about this theory is how it blends archaeology and mythology, even touching on science fiction. It really makes you question what we think we know about humanity's past and opens up the possibility of influences we haven't even considered.
Exactly. But before we jump into the more out there stuff, let's start with something a little more familiar. Mesopotamia, often called a cradle of civilization, you probably already know this, but it's where the Sumerians emerged about 7,000 years ago.
And their emergence wasn't quiet or gradual. The Sumerians developed writing, the wheel, sailboats, complex agricultural systems with irrigation, innovations that represented massive leaps forward in human development.
It's true. Think about the incredible progress we've made from writing to landing on the moon in a mere 7,000 years, which begs the question, what were we up to for the 225,000 years before Sumer? Why the sudden explosion of advancement?
That's a question that has puzzled historians and scientists for ages, and it's where the Anunnaki hypothesis steps in, offering a rather unconventional explanation.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me about this Anunnaki hypothesis.
According to the source material, the Anunnaki were advanced beings from a planet called Nibiru. Their planet was facing a dire environmental crisis, their atmosphere failing, and they believed Earth held the key to their survival: gold.
Gold, I have to admit, that seems a bit basic for a civilization capable of interstellar travel. Why not some exotic element we haven't even discovered yet?
That's where the theory gets interesting. The source claims gold wasn't just a precious metal to the Anunnaki, but a crucial element for their advanced technology. And get this, essential for repairing their damaged atmosphere. It suggests a whole different understanding of gold's significance, maybe even a cosmic perspective on its value.
Okay, now that's intriguing. So we have these Anunnaki facing planetary disaster, venturing across the galaxy to mine Earth's gold. It already sounds like a sci-fi blockbuster.
It does, doesn't it? But before we get too carried away, it's crucial to remember that we're exploring this through the lens of Zecharia Sitchin, whose interpretations of Sumerian texts, while fascinating, are hotly debated. We'll definitely dive into this controversies later.
Good point, but for now,
Yeah.
let's stick with the narrative. So the Anunnaki arrive on Earth, ready to mine all the gold they can get. But how do humans enter the picture?
Well, according to the theory, they needed a workforce initially. They allegedly enslaved another race called the Ai, but the Ai rebelled, forcing the Anunnaki to find another solution. And that's where things take a truly mind-boggling turn.
Let me guess. They decided to create their own workforce.
Precisely. The theory suggests they turned to genetic engineering, manipulating the DNA of early hominids, our ancestors, in an attempt to create a more manageable and obedient workforce.
Wait, hold on. So this theory suggests that Anunnaki are responsible for the very existence of humanity, that we're essentially the product of extraterrestrial genetic engineering.
That's the core claim.
Yes.
Yes. And here's where the theory gets really wild. The source describes the Anunnaki's early attempts at genetic engineering as well, less than successful. They supposedly created all sorts of monstrous beings: gorgons, cyclops, even two-headed giants.
Wow. Are you suggesting those mythical creatures we hear about in ancient stories could be the result of the Anunnaki's failed experiments?
That's what the theory proposes, however. They eventually succeeded in creating Adamu, the first man, from whom all of humanity is said to descend.
Adamu. That name sounds awfully familiar. Could there be a connection to the biblical Adam? This is getting really thought-provoking.
The parallels are certainly intriguing. And don't forget the concept of Eden, a sacred garden where humans were allowed to dwell. That features in the Anunnaki story as well, but like all good stories, there's a twist.
I'm on the edge of my seat. What's the twist?
The Anunnaki strictly forbade interbreeding between themselves and humans. However, Enki, one of their rulers, breaks this rule, falling for a human woman and fathering a child with her.
Forbidden love. It's a tale as old as time. What happens next? What becomes of this half-Anunnaki child?
This child, according to the theory, is the beginning of a new, more intelligent human lineage. However, this new lineage comes with a significant downside: a propensity for violence, leading to the conflict and immediately overpopulation.
That doesn't bode well for a peaceful planet. How did the Anunnaki respond to this escalating situation?
Their solution was, to put it mildly, drastic. The theory claims they sent plagues to Earth to control the burgeoning human population. This theme, interestingly enough, is echoed in many religious texts across different cultures.
It's amazing how these ancient stories seem to echo each other, isn't it? So where does the Great Flood fit into all of this? It seems like a recurring motif in many ancient myths.
That's where things get truly cataclysmic. Remember Nibiru, the Anunnaki's home planet? Well, according to the theory, it has a highly elliptical orbit, meaning it swings close to Earth periodically, and when it does, things get messy.
Messy how? Paint me a picture of this cosmic mess.
Imagine earthquakes on a scale never before seen, volcanic eruptions spewing ash into the sky, and tsunamis engulfing entire continents. The source describes a full-blown cataclysm that reshaped Earth and wiped out a vast portion of humanity. This, according to the theory, was the Great Flood.
Wow. It's a truly apocalyptic image, so everyone perished. That's a pretty bleak ending to the story.
Not quite. The Anunnaki, in their wisdom, decided to spare one man and his family, instructing him to build a massive ark to preserve life. Sound familiar?
Utnapishtim, the Sumerian version of Noah.
You got it. He survived the flood along with the seeds of all living things, allowing life on Earth to begin anew. And once the waters receded, the Anunnaki helped rebuild human civilization, gifting us with knowledge and technology that, according to the theory, shaped our
So
development.
it's painted as both destroyers and creators, playing a complex role in shaping humanity's destiny.
It's a multifaceted role, to say the least. And it raises a fascinating question. Are the echoes of these ancient events still present today? In our myths, religions, perhaps even woven into our very DNA?
It's a mind-blowing concept, isn't it? But before we get too carried away, let's step back and talk about the man behind this controversial theory, Zecharia Sitchin. Is he a visionary genius? A master storyteller?
Or
Something else entirely? That's a question we'll tackle in part 2 of this deep dive. Stay tuned.
Zecharia Sitchin's work, undeniably, is fascinating. He dedicated years to studying Sumerian texts, even teaching himself ancient languages. He presented this epic tale of the Anunnaki, based on his interpretations of these texts. But as with anything that challenges conventional thinking, his work has been met with a fair share of skepticism and criticism.
Yeah. He's definitely a controversial figure in the world of archaeology and ancient history.
Yeah.
So what are the main criticisms leveled against his work? What are the points of contention?
One of the biggest criticisms revolves around the accuracy of his translations. Many scholars argue that Sitchin's interpretations are often more like creative reinterpretations than strictly faithful translations. He tends to cherry-pick certain passages and weave them into his narrative, potentially overlooking other interpretations or contexts.
It sounds like his critics are accusing him of fitting the evidence to his theory, rather than letting the evidence speak for itself. Can you give us a specific example of this?
Sure, take the word Anunnaki itself. Sitchin translates it as those who from heaven to earth came, clearly implying extraterrestrial origins. However, a more accurate translation, according to many scholars, is royal blood or royal seed, referring to the lineage of the Sumerian pantheon.
So not aliens, but royalty. That shifts the interpretation quite a bit.
Yeah.
Are there other examples of Sitchin's interpretations being challenged?
Absolutely. Sitchin claims that the Sumerians knew of all the planets in our solar system, including Nibiru, based on his interpretation of an ancient cylinder seal. However, scholars point out that the Sumerians only knew of the planets visible to the naked eye, meaning Saturn would have been their outer limit. This suggests their knowledge of the solar system was limited to what they could observe directly.
So no flying chariots or gold mining expeditions to repair planetary atmospheres in the actual Sumerian texts.
Not explicitly, no. Sitchin draws those conclusions based on his interpretations of symbolism and mythology, which, as we discussed, are highly debated within the academic community.
Okay, so maybe not the most reliable translator when it comes to literal interpretations. But it's undeniable that his work has sparked a tremendous amount of interest in ancient mysteries, and the idea of Nibiru, this rogue planet with a chaotic orbit, is still captivating, even if his interpretation of its origins and purpose might be flawed.
It is a captivating idea, and to be fair to Sitchin, his work has opened up new avenues of inquiry. He's encouraged people to look at ancient cultures and their myths with fresh eyes, to consider alternative interpretations, and to question established narratives.
That's a valuable contribution in itself. And speaking of questioning established narratives, there have been some intriguing scientific discoveries that seem to echo elements of his theory. even if they don't directly validate it.
You're talking about the elongated skulls
Yeah.
and the possibility of Planet 9?
Exactly. Let's start with the skulls. We have Queen Pwabi, buried in the ancient Sumerian city of Ur, whose skull is abnormally large and elongated. And then there are the Paracas skulls in Peru, which some believe show evidence of genetic manipulation.
The Paracas skulls are particularly fascinating because DNA testing has revealed genetic markers that aren't typically found in indigenous South American populations. These markers are more common in people of Middle Eastern origin, suggesting possible ancient contact between continents, and perhaps even genetic intermingling.
Which seems to support the idea of ancient civilizations having a broader reach and more interconnectedness than we previously thought. And then there's the discovery of Planet 9, which seems to echo Sitchin's description of Nibiru, at least in terms of its unusual orbit.
Right. In 2015, researchers at Caltech found evidence suggesting the existence of a massive planet lurking in the outer reaches of our solar system. It has a highly elliptical orbit, meaning it travels an oval-shaped path around the sun, similar to what Sitchin proposed for Nibiru.
Could this be the real Nibiru, a planet with a chaotic orbit that could potentially explain the cataclysmic events described in ancient myths?
It's certainly a possibility. But it's important to emphasize that we need more data before drawing any definitive conclusions. The existence of Planet 9 hasn't been directly confirmed yet, but the evidence is compelling enough for scientists to continue searching and refining their models.
So we have these tantalizing clues: elongated skulls, a potential rogue planet that seem to add a layer of intrigue to the Anunnaki theory. But what about human evolution itself? Is there anything in our biology, our DNA, that might hint at genetic manipulation?
That's where things get truly mind-boggling. Remember, Neanderthals had brains as large as ours, yet they didn't exhibit the same level of complex thought, innovation, and cultural development that set Homo sapiens apart.
That's right, we're the ones building skyscrapers and writing symphonies, while Neanderthals, well, they seem to have vanished from the evolutionary stage. So what's the key difference? What sets us apart?
In 2020, researchers identified a specific gene, TKTL1, that plays a crucial role in the development of neurons in the human brain. And here's the kicker. Our version of this gene differs from that of other hominids by just one amino acid.
One amino acid. That seems like an incredibly small difference to have such a profound impact on our cognitive ability.
Exactly, and it's this tiny change that allows us to generate neurons at a much faster rate than other hominids, contributing to our higher cognitive functions. Scientists believe that this mutation didn't occur gradually through typical evolutionary processes, but was likely a sudden, targeted change.
Are you suggesting that someone or something intentionally tweaked our DNA, that we were given a brain boost that led to our dominance as a species? Could this be the Anunnaki's handiwork?
That's a question that scientists are still grappling with. The possibility, however remote and undeniably intriguing. It's like imagining a switch being flipped in our evolutionary past, suddenly propelling us from basic tool-making to complex language, abstract thought, and the development of advanced technologies.
Wow. So we've covered a lot of ground here. Sumerian mythology, controversial translations, elongated skulls, a potential rogue planet lurking in the outer reaches of our solar system, and even a possible genetic switch in our own DNA. It's a lot to process, and it raises more questions than answers.
That's the nature of exploring such profound and complex topics. But rather than feeling overwhelmed or frustrated by the lack of definitive answers, perhaps we can embrace the mystery. Perhaps the most valuable knowledge comes from acknowledging what we don't know and continuing to explore the vast unknown with open minds and a sense of wonder.
So where do we go from here? After this whirlwind tour of Sumerian mythology, controversial translations, and tantalizing scientific clues, what can we, as curious minds, take away from all of this? Are we really descendants of genetically engineered slaves created by advanced beings from another planet?
That's the ultimate question, isn't it? And it's one that each listener has to grapple with on their own. There's no definitive proof, no smoking gun that confirms or denies the Anunnaki hypothesis. But even if we approach it as a myth, it's a powerful one, speaking to something deep within us. A fascination with our origins, our place in the cosmos, and the possibility of something greater than ourselves out there.
I know I'm still trying to wrap my head around it all. It's a lot to take in. But you're right. Even if it's just a story, it's a story that has resonated with humans for millennia, from the ancient Sumerians to modern-day theorists. We've always been drawn to the idea of a hidden hand guiding our destiny. of forces beyond our comprehension shaping our world.
Absolutely. And let's be honest, it's a pretty compelling story. It's got all the elements of a classic epic. Advanced beings, genetic engineering, forbidden love, a devastating flood, and the eventual rise of humanity. It's like a cosmic soap opera with profound implications.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it makes you think about our relationship with technology, the environment, and even our own potential for both creation and destruction. Maybe the Anunnaki story, regardless of its factual basis, is a reflection of our own anxieties and aspirations as a species.
That's a great point. Perhaps it's a cautionary tale about the dangers of tampering with nature. Or maybe it's a hopeful reminder that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges, life finds a way to persist and evolve.
So what can we learn from the Anunnaki story, even if we don't take it literally? What insights can we glean from this deep dive into ancient myths and modern scientific mysteries?
I think the most important takeaway is the realization that our understanding of the universe is constantly evolving. What we consider impossible today might become accepted knowledge tomorrow. Just look at the history of science. We should never stop questioning, exploring, and seeking out new perspectives. Who knows what incredible discoveries await us, just beyond the horizon of our current understanding.
Beautifully said. The universe is vast and mysterious, and we're just beginning to scratch the surface of its secrets. Who knows what wonders await us as we continue to delve into the depths of our past and the possibilities of our future.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, as we continue to explore the cosmos and unravel the mysteries of our own DNA, we'll find evidence that we're not alone, that our connection to the universe is far more profound than we ever imagined.
Well, I don't know about you,
Yeah.
but this deep dive has definitely sparked my curiosity. I'm suddenly feeling the urge to do a little more research, maybe brush up on my Sumerian.
That's the spirit. You never know what those ancient texts might reveal.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive into the Anunnaki and human origins. We hope you enjoyed the journey as much as we did. Remember, keep those minds open, keep exploring, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one to uncover the next piece of this cosmic puzzle.